guys, so I'm back with a new video and let's talk about Death Trip. So I'm back with a new horror review, and again I didn't have anything for this week and I was looking for movies. I came across this movie that came out this year. I think it came out in February, so last month. And for some reason I didn't see anyone talk about this movie. Then I did some research and I found out that this movie has a really low rating on IMDb. I believe it has a 3.6 out of 10, which is a low score, and because of that I figured that was the reason why no one was talking about this movie, which was that this movie was awful, really bad. That kind of made me want to watch it even more because I wanted to know if the movie was as bad as their rating indicated. So yeah, here I am to tell you if this movie is as bad as IMDb says it is. So let's get into it. The plot for Death Trip is like a really basic one, but one that interested me because I like this type of movies. This apparently looks like a slasher. It's about a group of friends that go to this cottage vacation for a weekend, and when they get to the village where they're staying, the people in there are a bit weird, and things become even weirder when they suspect that the villagers are going after them. So pretty basic premise. Still, it interested me, and that was the reason why I wanted to watch this movie in the first place. I read the summary and it looked interesting. Then I was curious to know if this was bad. But before I get into my thoughts, let me tell you who stars in this movie, which is interesting. No big names. All these actors, this is their first movie, but their characters' names are their real names, which was interesting, and I only found that out after I watched the movie. But yeah, so the movie stars Kelly Yurcombe, Tatiana Olau, Garrett Johnson, and Melina Trimarchi. Yeah, I hope I'm pronouncing names right. I always have a hard time with names, mainly the ones that I have never heard before. So yeah, I hope I'm pronouncing their names right. And as I said, they all play their names. So Kelly plays Kelly and Tatiana plays Tatiana. So that was an interesting aspect. And as I said, this movie is their first movie. All the actors, like even the ones that I'm not mentioning, it's their first movie, like all of them. With that said, let's get into my thoughts. First of all, let me just tell you that this isn't as bad as you might think it is. It could have been like a great movie. I can see the potential, like the premise, although basic, could be interesting, and they do go in an interesting route, but it doesn't get there, and they just can't make the movie work as well as it could work. It's kind of a bummer because there's things about the movie that I really enjoyed, like as I said, the story, basic but interesting. The acting was pretty good. I was really surprised when I found out that this was their first movie because the chemistry is like really good, everything flows really well, and that doesn't happen often, mainly in a movie that it's the director's first movie as well as the actor's first movie. But everything worked pretty well, like in terms of acting and the lines, and everything felt really natural, which I loved. And the photography was also really good, like the movie looks beautiful. It is like slightly like your basic photography, but because this takes place in the winter, there's all those like snow shots and that like foresty vibe in the winter, which is really beautiful, and at times it reminded me of The Lodge, so that is great. But even though the movie has all these great things about it, it also has a lot of things that can't make it a great movie. There's a lot of bad things. Starting off right at the beginning of the movie, there's one thing that really bothered me, and that wasn't a good sign. The movie does get a bit better, like as I said, it isn't as bad as their rating makes it look like, but right in the beginning there's a shot. These aren't spoilers, it's just a little thing, but they tell you which day it is, like in titles form. They tell you which day and month and all of that. So they tell you which day it is, and the next thing after that title shows up, it's the protagonist that grabs her phone and she just going to look at some messages, but when she grabs it, it shows like the hour and the date, and the date in the phone it's completely different from the date that they told you like 2 minutes before. So that is a pretty big mistake, and it could have been rectified like just by the editing. They could have cut the part where it shows the hour and the date. They could have just gone straight into the messages. It wouldn't make any difference. Or they could have just not tell you what day it is in titles form, because that doesn't really matter for the plot in my opinion. Like they could have just said day 1 or something and it would have been the same, or not tell you at all which day it is, because yeah, it doesn't matter. I think the date is just there to let you know that everything happens in 3 days, 2/3 days, but we didn't need to know which day exactly it was. Apart from that, the movie also drags like a lot. It's not that it's slow, it just takes way too long to get into the action, to the point that I looked at the time and I was an hour into the movie, and the movie has an hour and 45 minutes. So I looked and I was an hour into the movie and action haven't started yet. So 1 hour into the movie and there's no action. I'm just going to tell you that the action only happens in the last 30 minutes, and even those 30 minutes drag a lot. Like it takes so long to get to the kills and to like have a resolution. So yeah, the movie just has a issue with pacing, and it's not that it's boring or it's a slow burn, it's just that yeah, it takes way too long to get to the part that you want to see, having in mind what the summary of the movie is, which looks like a slasher, and it isn't. The movie also is kind of predictable. They try to go into a different route, but it becomes a bit predictable in my opinion. I guessed what the ending was, sort of. And as I said before, like there's unnecessary things like the date, and there's nightmares that the protagonist has that doesn't add anything to the plot. Like those are there just for the horror sake of the movie, like to make you scared, because they don't add anything to the story, like they don't matter. So yeah, the movie has a lot of things that could have been cut. Also, they intertwine future snippets, like they intertwine little scenes, like little shots in the middle of the movie from the end. So I know that they did that to make you interested in what's going to happen, but that also tells you which characters are going to make it, or are going to make it till the end. And I just wish there was like a reveal and you were anticipating to see who was the first person killed, which that is kind of a surprise, but you know who makes it till the end, and that is kind of a bummer. With all of that said, I do recommend the movie mainly for one thing, which is the end. I know I said that it was sort of predictable, but they do one thing that is so original and that I have never seen in any other horror movie, and I wish I could tell you what it is because that is kind of huge, but I can't because of spoilers. So if you don't feel like watching the movie but you still want to know what makes it original and what that thing in the end is, just DM me on Twitter. My Twitter is always in the description below. So if you want to know what that original aspect of the movie is, just ask me and I'll tell you. If you don't feel like watching the movie, I still recommend it. I feel like there might be a few people that like it, but I can really promise you that you won't be a bit bored, because I was, and I wanted the action that didn't arrive until the last 30 minutes. So post that, let's get into my scores. So overall I give the movie a 2.5 out of 5. Not as bad as that IMDb score. I don't think this is a bad movie. There's a lot of great things about it, but it could have been improved. So yeah. Cinematography wise, I also give it a 2.5 out of 5. As I said, the photography is beautiful. The directing for the most part is also pretty good, but there's those little details in the editing that were a bit questionable, so yeah. And originality wise, I give it a 3.5 out of 5. I do think this is original. The premise might not look like it, but they do take a different route. Like the ending, although a bit predictable, it's different than what you were initially expected. That little thing in the end is like really different from any other horror movie. And yeah, there's a few things that are different and that I think makes this movie original. So yeah guys, these are my thoughts on Death Trip. Let me know in the comments if you have ever heard of this movie. If you did watch it, let me know what you think of it. And if you end up watching it after my review, also let me know. And if you don't feel like watching the movie, I totally understand you, but you still want to know what that twist at the end is, again, hit me up on Twitter and I'll tell you. And yeah, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're not subscribed yet, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!